Let me know when.
Okay.
So we've got two hemispheres to the brain. We've got a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. The two hemispheres are divided by what we call the longitudinal fissure. The two hemispheres are connected by this structure in the middle called the corpus callosum. Your brain has got 5 lobes to it. You've got a frontal lobe, a parietal lobe, a temporal lobe, an occipital lobe, and then one tucked up underneath that we call the insular lobe. So those are the 5 lobes of the brain. Your brain is highly convoluted. You have these individual folds, which we call gyri, and the grooves in between are called sulci. If you look at the inside of the brain, we've got a couple of sections to the brain. We've got a cerebrum, we have a cerebellum, a diencephalon in midbrain, and then a brain stem. The cerebellum is made of mostly unmyelinated gray matter, but it has a small amount of myelinated tissue in the middle, which we call the arbor vitae, or tree of life. This here in the middle is known as the corpus callosum. It's myelinated tissue that connects the two hemispheres and allows the two hemispheres to communicate with each other. Immediately below that, we have the intermediate mass of the thalamus. The thalamus is the central relay station of the brain. All incoming sensory information, except for olfaction or smell, goes to the thalamus, and then from the thalamus it goes to the appropriate, what we would call association area of the brain. Immediately inferior to the thalamus is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the thermostat for the brain, for the body. So all of our things like hunger, thirst, sex drive, all of that is primarily controlled by our hypothalamus. Immediately below that, inferior to that, is the infundibulum and the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the control gland for the endocrine system or the hormonal system. Right here, this little pink structure, this is the pineal body or pineal gland. The pineal gland regulates what we call circadian rhythm. That is our urge to wake up and our urge to go to sleep. So at night, when the sun goes down, the pineal gland starts to produce large amounts of melatonin, wanting us to go to sleep. When the sun comes up in the morning, the pineal gland stops producing melatonin and we want to wake up. We then have the brainstem, which controls basic bodily functions. We've got the pons, which primarily controls respiration, and then the medulla oblongata, which primarily controls our cardiovascular system. So even slight damage to the brainstem will cause immediate death because you're going to lose your 2 primary systems, which are the respiratory and cardiovascular system. You also have several ventricles. The ventricles is where our cerebral spinal fluid is produced. Right here below the corpus callosum, you'll find the lateral ventricles. So you have, these are known as ventricles 1 and 2. Right here you have your 3rd ventricle, our 4th ventricle, and cerebral aqueduct. That's the passages through which the cerebral spinal fluid that the brain is floating in goes through. And that's it.